Gabby is a very big role model in my life. If I ever need anything or advice or I just need to talk to someone. So yeah, she's super, super nice and I love her. She's just the best.
Tumble Track is having a sale on carpet bonded foam and they're having a summer blowout sale for 15% off. Pit pillows, open shoulder trainers, which you know people should sleep in if you ever want to do good bars, and cheese mats. Check out their sales tab on the website. Visit TumbleTrack at TUMBLTRAK, tumbletrack.com. Train smart.
Remember, the show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two.
Star of Undercover Boss, Gabby Douglas's mini-me, second place finisher to Simone Biles at Classic on floor, Kalia Lincoln joins us this week. Plus, all the code changes you need to know to be the most informed gym nerd on your block. We'll tell you what's different since Tokyo and all the Gymternet news. This is the 36th episode of 2023. It's August 14th, and welcome to the number one gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation, and we have an enthusiasm-o-meter from Jen, which is another way you can support us. You can join at the Rage-o-meter, Enthusiasm-o-meter level. So Jen says, I'm just as excited to see Simone come back on floor as everyone else, but let's see who else is doing amazing things. So that is her enthusiasm-o-meter, and I feel like the answer to that is Kalia Lincoln. So I have a story to tell you. Okay, so this is has the makings of a fairy tale, so I want you to keep your emotions in check. This might make you cry, Spencer.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so a family goes to Disney World. They're supposed to go to the water park. Daughter has her swimsuit on. She's sitting there. They're like, okay, let's go. Can't get her to move in front of the TV. They're like, come on, it's time to go to the water park. We're all the way here, ready to have our vacation. Won't move. What is she watching? She's watching Gabby Douglas at the London Olympics. After that, gets put in gymnastics. All she wants to do in gymnastics, becomes a gymnast, works her way up. Years later, there's a TV show filming in her gym. And there's an older woman who comes in. They're, talking to her. Suddenly, she reveals herself 6 years later now from the Disneyland time. Reveals herself, this woman, to be Gabby Douglas, Undercover Boss. This was Kalia Lincoln on Undercover Boss with Gabby. Gabby pledges after that show to mentor Kalia Lincoln. And she does. Fast forward now to 2023. And Gabby Douglas says that she's coming back, aiming for Paris. And where is she training? The same gym group that Kalia Lincoln is training at. Gabby Douglas is at one WOGA. Kalia Lincoln is the other WOGA. I love this so much. If I was an NBC fluff piece, this is all the whole show would be. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It would be sponsored by Disneyland. There would be they would be floating in water parks together, holding hands, texting about training. That's what I would be doing.
I think the big win in this whole story is that Kalia never had to go to the water park.
That's so Spencer of you. So, Kalia's been a junior national team member 3 times. She's the Winter Cup floor champion. We talked about her endlessly in our classic recap because she tied for second with Joss on floor. So it was like Simone Biles, Joss, and Kalia. She's one that gets on vault and floor. She's a 14er. We talked about where you need to be at the top, make a world team. 14s, mid-14s, you're up there in a final. She's one of those gymnasts. Also, a note that I'm going to talk about one of Kalia's coaches, which is Yevgeny Marchenko, and he coached the 2004 Olympic all-around champion. You might have heard of her, Carly Patterson, and he was also an acro world champion. So that's who I'm talking about when I talk about Yevgeny. All right, here's Kalia.
Gabby is a very big role model in my life. She's always there for me. She gives me so much advice, and I know I can always reach out to her if I ever need anything or advice or I just need to talk to someone. So yeah, she's super, super nice, and I love her. She's just the best.
You have known Skye Blakely for a long time. Do you remember the first time you met her?
Yes, I remember the night before we left for Canada, we all had a meeting, and I just remember sitting across from her, and we would just look at each other and start laughing out of nowhere. Like nothing was funny, no one was talking. We would just look at each other and start laughing.
Is there anything that you guys do as part of practice that is just in general, like at with your coaches or whatever, that is like a favorite thing that's like your favorite day in the gym when it's X day? Like no conditioning day. I bet you never have a no conditioning day, but
so every Friday morning we actually get to play a game, and we either play baseball or kickball, and everyone in our gym is really competitive, so it's a very intense game of baseball or kickball. It's really fun.
does Yevgeny ever tell you stories about what it was like coaching Carly Patterson to be an Olympic champion, or like what his life was like before in the Soviet Union?
He tells us a little bit about his experience with Carly Patterson. The other day, he was telling us a story about when they were driving to the arena, their bus caught on fire, so they had to get off the bus, and they were on the highway, and they had to get off the bus, stand on the side of the road for 45 minutes, just waiting for another bus to come, and I couldn't even imagine. Like, that's really crazy.
Can you talk about what your injury was and what your process of coming back from that was like?
Yes, so I got knee surgery because it turned out I had OCD in my knee and it had been there for a few years, so it was a very long process to get it fixed. But honestly, it was kind of a hard time in my life because before that I had already came back from an injury and then I had got injured again. So it was definitely hard physically, but I would say it was even harder mentally because I just had to, stay focused, realize what my goals were. Because at some point I did kind of lose myself and thought, okay, maybe the sport isn't for me. Maybe I need to just move on. But I definitely worked through that. It took a very long time and a lot of support, but at the end of it, I was really proud of myself for coming back, getting my skills back, every day just focusing on one thing I wanted to improve in or get back. And that's what really helped me stay on track and just continue with what I wanted to do.
It seems to me like you're better.
Yes, I do hear that from a lot of people. At some point, I was really freaking out after my surgery. I was like, okay, what if I don't tumble as good? What if I don't have my power anymore? And everyone was just telling me, well, you look better than you did before. And it just really shocks me because I'm not sure how that happened, but yeah.
Good rehab can do that. Watching you, I remember watching you, but this time around too, and maybe it's because you're older now too, it's just you remind me so much of Gabby Douglas. It's your form, your execution, your power, your crazy over-splits at every leap. I'm credit, she's going to get credit. Oh, she can do a switch half. You're the only one. I saw there's 5 people in the world that can do a switch half correctly and get credit, and you're just beautiful. And I was like, oh my God. Is that part of do you seek to emulate in her a way, or is she just your inspiration for your execution?
I definitely say she's my inspiration. I used to watch her so much, every day watching her videos. So she's definitely one of my inspirations for that.
Is it something that you really had to work hard on? I remember being shocked hearing Nastia say that it was hard. She really had to work on her flexibility. I'm you did, your flexibility looks so easy. Was it hard for you, or did that come naturally?
It was definitely hard for me. I'm not the most flexible, so I definitely had to work every day, stretch every day, and just put in the work every day to get there.
You definitely did. My gosh. What is the secret to doing a good switch half?
Honestly, one thing I always tell myself is I think of a switch leap, always start with my switch leap first, and at the end I start turning. Because if you rush to do the half first, you're not going to get a full split. So I really just think about completing my switch leap first and then start turning.
Do you have a favorite skill that you do?
My favorite skill is my double-double on the floor.
Oh, your double-double is so beautiful.
Thank you.
How long have you been doing that double-double? Like, when did you first learn it?
It's been a few years now. It's been like, I want to say I was 12 when I first learned it. I just never thought of competing it before until this year. So, yeah.
Normally you add difficulty and your form goes down, but your form got better. Is that something that you like really worked on before you actually competed on the floor?
Yes, I trained it every single day to make sure I was prepared to actually put it on the floor, because I'm kind of like mental a lot. So if I know I'm not ready, then I just won't do it. So I definitely work on preparing myself first a lot so I can complete it.
So does that mean that your routines at Classic are your final routines? Like, this is what you're going to do, or are you going to have any tweaks or changes?
I do have some tweaks and some upgrades for championships. So yeah.
Are they secret, or do you want to tell people what to look for?
I do have one more upgrade on the floor. And it is a little bit of a secret because I kind of want to
surprise people.
Yeah.
Well, to me, it looks like you could do a full twisted double layout or a Moores or a Biles or anything you want. So I'm excited to see what you decide. Is there a skill you've always wanted to do, or even that you just do on trampoline or off tumble track, but you haven't done that's just the most fun and crazy?
I do, I train triple doubles sometimes, but I'm not sure if I can see myself really competing that, but it is fun to train.
If you were going to change something about gymnastics, so it doesn't have to be the code, just anything, you're the president of the universe of gymnastics, what would you do?
I think I would change some of the rules about our Leos. It's just kind of what you have on them, what you can show your shoulders, your shoulder blades, that kind of confuses me a little bit, but yeah.
Do you think in general, because you've been on the national team 3 times and you've been to lots of camps and you've been to selection camps and all of that stuff, do you think camp and gymnastics and stuff is going in the right direction?
I would say we are going in the right direction. There has been some things that people don't really agree with, but I say we've definitely improved a lot and we're kind of heading towards the right direction.
Is there something at camp that you like better than the past, something new that you think is an example of that?
So we get awards for certain things, say you have the best execution on the ball or you did your floor dance beautifully. We get awards for that now, so you kind of just you kind of work on the details more. So they award us for things like that. So I think that really helps us.
What is it like being at camp have you been at camp yet with Simone?
It was a while ago. I was at camp with her, not recently, but I have been. I was really nervous. I saw her walk in and was oh my gosh. But then I realized she's a normal person. She's a gymnast like me. But I do realize she's very chill. She laughs all the time. She cracks jokes. I thought she'd be more on the serious side, but she's not like that at all.
Could you literally at Classic, I had to cover my ears like a baby because it was so loud. I was I'm not going to have eardrums after this. How did you guys handle that on the floor?
It was definitely that was my first time competing with her, so I was not used to it at all. I was what is going on? Why is everyone screaming? And I realized she had just won a ball, and I was oh, that's why.
That's why. This is what it sounds like when Simone vaults on the floor. Oh my God, it was so loud. What's your schedule like? What's your training?
Well, we just started school, so right now I go 8 to 11:30, and then I go to school until 4:25, and then I go back to the gym from 5 to 7.
Okay.
And we do that Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday we just do. Friday we do 8 to 11, and then Saturday 8 to 12.
Cool. And then how do you like that schedule? How was it adjusting to that schedule, I should say?
It was definitely different from what I used to have, but I do enjoy it more because I go to public school, and I think it's just something that helps me kind of have a social life and make friends. So I do like that our schedule can allow me to do that.
Where are you going to college? Have you committed?
Yes, I committed to LSU, and I'm really excited.
You are going to have, so that's next 2024, right? That would be the year that you go. You guys are going to have the most amazing team.
Yes, I am just so ready to be able to compete with all the girls and just train with them. And I'm so excited.
Have you seen the gym? Have you visited?
Yes.
It's a palace.
Yes, it is beautiful. I'm in love with it.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is the most beautiful gym I've ever seen in my life. It is, yes, that is the gym you deserve. I am happy that you are going to have that gym. Do you know what you want to major in, or what? Do you have any idea?
So I plan to major in kinesiology because I kind of want to go down the sports medicine, physical therapy route. So yeah.
Yeah, that's my degree, kinesiology, exercise science. Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I really liked it. For me, because I wanted to make sure, when I graduated, I had a guaranteed job. No matter what happened in the world, even if I didn't like it, I'd always go back to this. I'd use gymnastics for all of my projects. There's different pathways you could do, but I still use it today. Even as a professional talking about gymnastics, I use it. So that's the thing. Education is never wasted.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do with the degree. If you want to coach, whatever you want to do, even if you want to be a firefighter like your dad.
He always tells me that. He's like, "Oh, have you ever thought of being a firefighter?" And I just I could not handle that. I couldn't.
What are your gymnastics goals for yourself?
One of my goals right now is just kind of obviously focus on championships, and next year is a very big year for me and everyone else as well. So I kind of just want to focus in on next year, get as prepared as I can, and obviously I do want to make it to Olympic trials and just compete there just for the experience. Even if I don't make it, I would love to just be in the room with everyone, be able to compete at that level with those girls. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it is such a pleasure to watch you do gymnastics. So thank you for all the joy you bring us with your amazing gymnastics.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Kaliya for joining us. We cannot wait to watch her at championships. Speaking of championships, we have a live show coming up in San Jose. If you can't make it live in person to watch, then you can get a virtual ticket and you can interact and ask questions live, just like the people that are there in person if you have a virtual ticket, and you can watch it for 2 weeks after. Don't wait to get your virtual ticket because we can't answer all of your questions on the day of, because we're all working, because we're a very, very, very small business. So this live show is featuring us, your favorite podcast host, but also Simone Biles, coach and brevet judge, who was with Simone for 20 of her Olympic and world medals. 5 Olympic medals, 4 gold, 15 world medals, 10 gold. Aimee Boorman is going to be our guest, and she has stories, camp, Marta days, all the things happened with Simone. Then she became a brevet judge. She judged Simone at this last at Classic, and she went to the Netherlands and was a coach there too. So she knows lots of things, lots of perspective to tell us about. Okay, San Jose Improv, Saturday, August 26th at noon Pacific. Get there early. Make sure you're there in line before 11:30, because we're in there. We're getting it done. You need to order your drinks right on time so you'll be ready when the show's ready to go. And if you need any help, email customer service at gymcastic.com and you can get your tickets at GymCastic.com. Also, there's a sale going on TeePublic right now. So if you go to gymcastic.com, click on the store tab, you get t-shirts or a giant tapestry to declare your gym nerdness, or to hold up a tapestry and support your favorite gymnasts like Suni or Simone, or Team Everyone, the most important team. So get those now so you have them in time for championships or for Worlds. Let's discuss the 2024 code changes, because
Sure.
there's a lot has happened. It's also, you guys, I mean, I feel like we're going to talk about what the biggest differences are since Tokyo, but also it's how the code is enforced, because there's rule changes and then they're like, slam the gas on the slam the gas, not the brakes, slam the gas pedal down on e-score. So let's get into what the biggest changes are and rules heading into 2024, especially going into championships and world championships this year.
Sure. So one of the biggest changes is the addition of a dismount bonus. So what changed there is gymnasts get an additional 0.2 in difficulty, in their difficulty score, if they have a difficult enough dismount. So if it's rated D or higher, then they get a bonus 0.2. That's on bars, beam, or floor. You don't dismount on floor, you just have a final tumbling pass, but that's what the dismount is on floor.
So why do you think they did this? Especially after Simone submitted her double-double dismount and they were like, too dangerous. No, downgrade.
How dare you? How dare you do something so
She might get hurt, said Donatella in her letter. Never forget.
I mean, why is always an interesting question when it comes to the Women's Technical Committee, and it's often the answer is, I don't know. I think people were doing kind of easier dismounts and scoring well for them in the last set of rules, in the last quad, which actually the FIG intentionally invited with their previous change of the code, but then they were like, oh, no, we actually don't want you to be able to win when you're dismounting with, beam with a double full layout or bars with a double tuck or something. I think they decided they wanted to incentivize a little bit more difficulty, just not too much difficulty.
No.
Because then
you might get hurt difficulty.
Yeah.
The safest double-double that's ever done. You might get hurt, but go ahead. Yeah.
In terms of who this helps, who this hurts, I think it hurts those gymnasts like from the Netherlands who are building their D-score through dance elements. There are some Chinese beamers who were doing the double full beam dismount like Tang Shijing in the Olympic team final. That creates more of a gap between her composition, which is very much based on like, I'm connecting dance elements, I'm doing mixed series, I have good execution, and that's where my score is coming from. There's more of a gap between those who are doing difficult dismounts. So we were also talking about Suni Lee's dismount at Classic, where she's doing the gainer tuck full, which is a C element, doesn't get any bonus. She has performed before a layout double full, like I was talking about with Tang Shijing, also wouldn't get any bonus, so that doesn't really change things for her. But we'll see. It's the kind of thing with Suni. Her capability is higher when you talk about gymnasts at this level. Like they always could, if it makes sense for their routine, add more difficulty. And so we'll see if the need for a dismount bonus or the desire to up that D score to compete with, the high sixes that we're seeing from some gymnasts promotes Suni to add a more difficult dismount if she's able to at some point. Because in general, this helps already the power nations, the US, Great Britain, Italy, those nations where almost everyone is already doing a dismount with a D or higher value. So they're getting a bonus 2/10 for changing nothing. Just do your routine that you were doing before, and now it's 2 extra tenths because this is the dismount you were going to do anyway.
It seems to me that this was created to incentivize teams that are building, like the Netherlands building through dance, to have a equal spread on their difficulty. So you can't mount and dismount with something super easy and then show super crazy dance in the middle. You have to have it, which is supposed to be at the elite level, mastery of all the kinds of skills. So yeah, I don't hate it.
I don't either. It is interesting though that, it just requires a D dismount or higher to get the bonus. So if you're doing a D dismount. You get the same bonus as, Simone, who could be dismounting with like a Z, doing whatever she wants to. And that's all the same bonus. So I think the people who benefit from it the most are the ones who can do the difficulty, but aren't necessarily trying to get so much out of huge difficulty dismounts.
Yeah. Let's talk about my favorite topic ever, the artistry checklist.
Oh boy. All right. Yeah.
Which this is when I was talking to Dan Baker at Classic. He was like, and he's one of the Trident who run the women's elite program. And he was like, this is why judging takes so long, because the checklist takes so long to go through. And I was like, oh, wouldn't be a problem for me. I'd be like, boop, boop, boop.
Jessica's done with the checklist after 4 seconds of the beginning of the routine.
Have you seen the checklist? I was like, oh, you mean, and I literally have it open at all times on my computer. I was like, this checklist? Yeah, I'm very familiar. It's my favorite thing ever. We weren't on the same page with how great the checklist is, but yeah, let's talk about that.
Yes, so there's a checklist now. The checklist is new for allegedly artistry. I would say it's more about posture and movement than it is about artistry. The examples of things on there, like insufficient involvement of the body parts, which basically means, it can't be just arms. You have to have choreography that isn't just waving your arms. You have to do other things. Or there's maximum elongation of the movements, which basically means that like your arm movement, when you do it, can't start at the shoulder. It has to start earlier. It has to be a whole body movement starting from the core. So there are those kinds of things that they've added, which aren't really about performance. And if you're watching along with us, we're mesmerized by Brooklyn Moore's on floor from podium training at 2019 Worlds, who masters both the posture, movement, and presentation and the actual artistry and emotive performance.
We should never use Brooklyn as an example, because I can't concentrate on anything when she's on the screen. Yeah, I can't. I was like, what was Spencer saying?
Brooklyn. See ya, Brooklyn. We got to focus.
Artistry checklist. Brooklyn Moore's, yes. Everyone shut up. Brooklyn Moore's is going.
Everyone
that is
shut
the rule.
up. Something important is happening. Jessica has never done that, I will say, in an arena, but you've wanted to. It's been close.
I've never shouted shut up. I've said it under my breath.
I think it's a miracle, and I think you deserve a round of applause for never bringing a megaphone to the arena and before Brooklyn Moore's goes announcing something important is about to happen, so everybody just shut up.
I do have a megaphone, by the way,
yeah,
but I have not used it for that important purpose yet. Okay, so why was this implemented?
I mean,
Jade?
Mostly to try to stop people from clomping around the floor like a plumber and still winning titles because they have difficult tumbling. Like I think that's pretty much why. Because there's still a lot of that happening, but there's a lot of it. So
plumbers everywhere are offended. I felt like
send your letters. I will take them because I do not care.
I felt like this was a United States is still doing too well / Jade Carey and Vanessa Ferrari competed in the same Olympic final, and Jade Carey won over Vanessa Ferrari when Vanessa Ferrari delivered an artistic performance that was worthy of a stage. Am I wrong?
Yes, I think you're wrong. Not completely, but I would say I think it's a misconception that this is targeted at Jade's Olympic win. I think that's kind of become the narrative, because this is all done way before the Olympics. Like the code changes are written and decided on way before the Olympics. Like this artistry checklist was made before the Tokyo competition had even happened.
Yeah.
So while I agree that there was an intention toward a number of gymnasts who weren't like doing the most in dance, that was a reaction toward them. But I think the idea that this had anything actually to do with Jade Carey specifically as a gymnast isn't right. It was targeted at like 90% of gymnasts, of which Jade Carey is one.
Yeah.
There are only about 10% of gymnasts who aren't targeted by this.
Yeah. And I would say, I'm not trying to put down Jade. She worked the rules and won, like fair and square. I think they saw this coming. They saw this eventual outcome and we're like, we want more Netherlands. How do we make the can't dance countries be more like them? So, and mushed it. So this doesn't happen. And so now they're like, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Cause I still think there's people that can put together such a big fat D that the artistry checklist cannot take them down.
Yeah. Well, what would you say, like, if you watched Simone's routine at Classic, what would you do with that on the artistry checklist? That's kind of, I'm putting you on the spot there, but did you have it open when you were watching Simone, or were you too busy crying like a proud mother at Simone's return?
Both. So I feel like the choreography there is there so that she won't get any artistry deductions, but she's not performing it as intended, I would say. So she is going to get, it's not her posture. It's not her, it's insufficient, maximum elongation she's going to lose on, and the insufficient involvement of all body parts. Because you see, if you look at a Brooklyn Moores versus a Simone's all her dance is upright, and it needs to be everything up and down. You have to move through all the planes, and that's the thing that I feel like she doesn't do. She's mostly a stand-up dancer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd probably
say she's getting a fair number.
Yeah, I would say about at least half the artistry deductions in that routine.
And we would still characterize her at this point as the major favorite on floor, if any, what we saw at Classic is any indication. Yeah, I think in general, like in terms of deciding who the artistry checklist hurts versus who it helps, I mean, it hurts most of the U.S. gymnasts, but I think it hurts anyone who isn't constantly being the most. Like, that's the question. Like, are you being too much in every moment? And if the answer is no, deduction. Yeah, you're a deduction. You have to be so over the top in a way that I really enjoy. It's like you must be like annoying to like if you were behaving this way in real life, if you were emoting this much, everyone would be like, I don't want to be around that. That's what you need to do on floor in order to avoid an artistry deduction. It has to be deeply over dramatic.
And this is like the example I was giving on behind the scenes this week when we were talking about artistry, and I was talking to a coach who said artistry has to be part of everything, but it's not just working on artistry. Because you can just have artistic robots. Like, there's examples of that where they are it's a gym who's praised for their artistry, but you could switch out the gymnast and it's the exact same routine. You know who you are. But for years and years, same exact. But it has to be, to your point about being comfortable doing something that's super embarrassing. This coach was telling me, like, you can't make robots emote. They have to feel comfortable as human beings and comfortable doing these uncomfortable things, dancing, emoting, all of that stuff. So I think that is why it's going to be hard for some of these gyms to get their gymnasts to this level, because it's an all the time thing. Unless you have your ballet or dance or modern as a rotation from the time you were a gymnast egg, like the Soviet Union had.
From before you have learned to be society has ruined you and made you self-conscious.
Yes, before American middle school or American fourth grade. This is when the horrible indoctrination and patriarchy starts to weigh down on your soul.
That's the best example of, like, why is the U.S. bad at artistry? Middle school. Yeah. That's the best answer there's ever been.
Or just America.
Or America. Have you met it? Yeah, I mean, of course, who does the artistry checklist help? This is where a program like the Netherlands will excel. Belgium, which is a good example, I think, because, like it or hate it, very polarizing floor routines typically from Belgium, but they are doing the most. They are going for it. Sometimes they're insane in a way I enjoy, but they're, they spark broad opinions in the whole spectrum, but they're doing what they're supposed to do. Other gymnasts, so in terms of the artistry presentation that everyone got, that the FIG put out, some of the example gymnasts they use Ethora from the Netherlands for posture. They use Riley McCusker as an example for elongation of the movements, especially on beam. So that's someone to watch in terms of what are they looking for in terms of that extension starting earlier in the body, closer to the center of the body. And then, of course, like Brooklyn Moores for the use of all the body parts, because she's feeling head to toe.
Yeah.
Top to toe, she's feeling it.
And remember, this goes into the E-score, but it's separate than the E-score. So you have the irregular, like, angle deductions and bent knees and all that stuff and landings, and then you have the artistry checklist, and then they get booped together. That's how they do it. They just boop at the end.
They do boop them together, and they shouldn't.
They should be separate.
I want that artistry deduction listed separately than the skill execution deduction.
I want a whole separate panel on that who deducts live in real time or gives a checklist. You did it. Nothing in that one. I'm at the end of the routine. I haven't seen this. Yeah. Another area we have to talk about is the bars bonus downgrade.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about it, and then I want to know your theories about this. Why?
Okay, good. So basically what changed is the E plus D element combination on bars was downgraded from a 2/10 bonus to a 1/10 bonus. This is a super popular combination from those who were getting high D scores on bars. We're watching right now, if you're watching along with us, Ellie Seitz doing a training routine on bars where she's doing Stalder Takachev piked to pack to Stalder Shaposh half. That pack, that D element in between that she's connecting, when she did this routine, would have earned 2/10 in bonus on either side of this connection. But the D element now in combination only gets her the 1. So, that's a big drop for those athletes who were like building their D score through the mega connections.
Yeah. So why do you think they did this?
I think on one hand, I think so many gymnasts proved capable of doing this that
But they were like, the bars final's too good. Get rid of them.
Yeah, that it became like a lot of the changes on bars, I think, and we'll talk about Nabi-ava's later, were because they valued something a certain way because they're like, oh, that's really hard. And then it turned out the level of gymnastics and the level of gymnasts said, actually, for us, that's not that hard. E plus D plus E. The Sunnis of the world came along and were like, actually, that's not hard. I could do that in my sleep, so...
Which to me is like, I don't know. I feel like bars is the event that's gone the right directions because of the connection bonuses, because it's like crazy ass thing to crazy ass thing between the bars to crazy ass thing back up to the bar to another crazy ass release. That's what I want to see. Like, I want to see everything connected. And I like that bonus. Like, I would like you to be able to do a no kip bar routine for a point of bonus. That is my dream. But what I want them to do, you know how I feel about mounts. This mount situation is crap. The way that they have now made it so that you have to have that dismount requirement on beam. This is what I want for a mount
bars,
on
beam,
bars.
and floor. Yeah.
Right. This whole freaking just mount with a kip, jump to the bar. Oh, so boring. If you want to make it harder, make people do a Yurchenko full onto the low bar or a front flip on to grab the high bar like the old days. So fun.
I want to talk through... Well, actually, before 1 second, I think there's also something to be said because you still can do the big mega connection, minimize the cast. It's just you have to be doing E and F elements to get that huge value from it now. So you're pushing people to maybe be more creative and challenge themselves and push the boundaries. Like, the problem that we see in a lot of respects in the open-ended code era is the Women's Technical Committee will determine a combination formula. It's A plus, it's B plus B, it's D plus C, whatever. And then everyone will find the easiest possible solution. And then everyone will do that to get the bonus. And that happens again and again. And then they see that, oh, everyone's doing that combination now because it's worth a lot. So now we need to downgrade it. And it always reacts to that. And, I would prefer a looser combination bonus rules in general in order to allow for more variable solutions and less samey routines. We'll be right back after this.
Club Gym Nerd. Get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets
An extra podcast every week, athlete dossiers, code guides, commission your own segments of the show. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at GymCastic.com at the Join the Club tab.
Yeah. I just want to point out this other thing is like thinking about what the when they make up these rules and they're like, oh, we think this is really hard, and then a lot of people can do it, they change it. It's not that it's hard. It's like no one's training this stuff if it's not valuable. It's not that it's hard for them. That's the thing. It's like there's no incentive. Like no one did wolf turns 20 years ago except Taryn Humphrey. So but now it's like compulsory. You have to have a wolf turn. So I wish there was just more variety is what I want. But I really like bars. So it's going to be crazy. This is the Becky Downey code. She's going to be like 7 Fs in a row. Bring it.
Yeah, it's Kalia Namor. The people who can do a lot of E's and F's together without D's have a major advantage in terms of composition. I want to talk about Suni's bars routine and use that as an example, because there is an interesting thing. I'm looking forward to seeing Suni on bars because she was performing that kind of combination in the Tokyo Olympics, where she was doing the piked Jaeger to a pack to a Van Leeuwen, which used to be, E plus D plus E for 0.4 connection bonus. That's why she was doing that combination. It was just completely maximizing the bonus and the value you could get out of the code at the time. She was like, I got this in the bag. Now, piked Jaeger is downgraded back to a D and that connection bonus. So that's now D plus E for 2 connection bonus tenths. So she lost 3 tenths for that connection between the bonus and the skill value downgrade. So on the one hand, like a lot of the changes in the code hurt Suni on bars, but also I hesitate to say they really hurt Suni because they hurt Suni's composition that was put together in 2021 with those rules in mind. But she is also very capable of adapting to the new rules because, as we learned in 2020 2021, she has 6 different different routines that she can throw out based on context and whatever she needs to do in the moment. So does it really hurt her? It just means she has to change her routine, basically, rather than it being an actual disadvantage, is my view. But we'll see when we actually see a bars routine.
This is why it would be really fun to take these gymnasts who are super amazing and be like, okay, let's have Kaliana Namor, Suni, and Nina all together, Olympic champion, and be like, okay, guys, try this. And just over a pit or whatever, and just see the like a game of add-on. And see who can get it by then. Like add-on, like you play on trampoline, but on bars and beam, because they're nuts. Anywho. All right. The dreaded wolf turn. Please tell me this code has decided, I already know it's not true, but eliminate deval. It's a 0. It's negative points if you do a wolf turn.
That is not what happened, but I think there was a very populist change to the code in limiting the number of wolf turns you can do or count in a routine to 1. So those gymnasts who were doing back-to-back variations of wolf turns, they do a triple and then pause and then do a double, can't do that anymore for value. So it has, I think, improved composition in terms of variety, in terms of lack of repetitiveness. So I'm all for it. Even though I'm kind of like over hating wolf turns, I feel like that's so passe. But I do like that it is. You can't just lean on like, oh, I'm going to get all of my dance element value from wolf turns and then maybe a switch split. Like you have to show a little bit more variety in what you're doing there, which I think is good. I mean, why it was changed, I think is purely just because everyone hates them. Like there's no intrinsic logic to saying you can't do 2 wolf turns in the same routine. It doesn't really make like why not?
Skills. Yeah. But you can't.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Because you can do all the Takachev combinations. You just have to do a different kind of Takachev. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So
I mean, you could repeat layout step outs on beam. You could do back handspring, layout step out. That's 2 of the exact same skill. Yeah. But it's just like you can't do 2 wolf turns because everyone hates them.
You should have to connect a wolf turn to an acro skill. That will eliminate them. Acro out of a squat? It'll be like Jordan
Yeah.
Childs. She'll spin straight up into a backflip. That
Yeah.
time she did the Wolf Kino. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to get a wolf turn to back dive sideways on the beam.
That would be really cool, though, actually. I would watch a wolf turn if that happened after it. So who does this hurt the most?
I think it hurts like Kayla DiCello, Grace McCallum, who's not competing in elite anymore, but those gymnasts who really loaded up on the wolf turns and were very comfortable with them. It was just like, wolf turns, I practice this all the time. I could do them in my sleep. Here's a triple. Here's a double. On beam, here's a triple. Here's a double on floor. So those gymnasts, I think, were hurt, or those types of routines were hurt in this new rule change, because they lost, like, you used to get 5/10 for that triple and then 4/10 for that double. That's 9/10. That's the same as the layout double on floor. That's worth, that wolf turn combination is worth the exact same as doing a Moores. So it was hugely valuable, and now they're, you're losing a 0.4, you're probably keeping the triple, ditching the double. But I think everyone's adapted pretty well, and I think beam composition is for the better. And the people who were most helped by this change is us. The viewing public. People with eyes.
Finally! Somebody cares about our eyes. The Nabi-ava has been downgraded, and I have feelings about this. We talked about this a little bit, but it's offensive to Nabi-ava personally.
Yes. So the Nabi-ava used to be a G element, which is the highest on bars, which is the cap on bars still, no reason. And now it is an F element. And I would say this is another one of those examples of, it was downgraded because in the course of a decade, it went from amazing, I can't believe someone's doing this, to basically compulsory for the top bars workers. So it's a downgrade to reflect the evolution of difficulty on bars, which is okay, but it kind of wasn't one of the things I found the most pressing issues that needed to be changed in the code. I have so many more things I would rank ahead of downgrading the Nabi-ava, but...
So who does this help the most? Because I'm thinking of someone who hasn't competed yet this year. Well, Nina, and also an American who was silver all around at the Worlds last year.
Well, yeah, because we've seen Shilese Jones training the Stalder version of this, the Stalder to layout Takachev, which now would surely, there's room to value that as a G if you've downgraded the toe-on version to an F. Whereas if it had stayed a G, they probably would have had the same value. So if you're able to do a more difficult entry, you get that bonus. Like, I know that's not just Shilese Jones, but she's an example of a gymnast who can do that more difficult entry. There's room to be rewarded for it.
Has anyone done the free hip version of this yet, a Nabi-ava? I don't think so. I feel like
Namor was just like, I'm going to do it in bar.
Yeah, the Stalder. But I wonder if I wonder how they'll rate that when and if it happens. I mean, because some people get such a whip out of their free hip, but I feel like the lack of swing, I mean, you're going to have like arms for days to do that.
Ask Ellie Black. She could get that power out of the free hip and just be like, boom.
She'll be like, yes, I do lift all the heavy weights while jumping on the weekend. So yeah, I will do that.
But clear hip versions of Takachevs are rated higher. Like the toe on Takachev is a D, but the Hindorf is an E. So if you're using consistency, which they rarely do, it would be higher than the Nabi-ava.
Yeah. E, F, G. So H?
They haven't been willing to go to H on bars.
Man! Basically a Hindorf Nabi-ava with a full twist.
One would think they would need to break out of G. They were willing to do it on floor. They were willing to do it on beam. It makes no sense that they're not willing to do it on bars.
It's almost like they just need rules for how you codify things. And
oh my God.
steps.
They need a style guide so bad.
So bad. Takachev restrictions. I don't know how I feel about this.
Well, I think we'll figure out how you feel about it as we talk about it. So the rule is you can only do one Takachev without a turn from each root skill on bars. So a root would be the type of swing, like a long giant swing, or a stalder, or a toe on, or a clear hip, or an in bar. So from each root, you can only do one. So presumably to promote more variety on bars,
So
more
you
variety in
could,
releases.
from this rule, you could do a free hip Takachev, Hindorf.
Yes.
Then you could do a Stalter Takachev. Then you could do a toe-on Takachev. Then you could do a long swing Takachev. So you could do 5, 6, because then you could do a Takachev and catch in a turn. And that would be 5 or 6, however many I said on my fingers right there. Very,
You can still do a lot of Takachevs.
You can do a lot in a row. Yeah. That's how I like them. Do them in a row. Anything that makes the crowd very gaspy when you do things in a row. That's what we like to see.
I thought you were saying the crowd very gassy.
No. I want them to crowds, ooh, ooh, ooh. That's
yeah.
With each catch, more oohs. That's what you want.
Just put a German giant in your routine. Nothing makes people ooh like a German giant.
Oh, they lose it.
You could do a Stalder Nabi-ava and you wouldn't get as much oohing and ahhing as a German giant.
You don't need shoulders? Put it in there.
No. Who needs them? So this did force a change in Simone's bars composition because she was doing a regular giant swing Takachev and a giant swing pike Takachev in her previous routine. So she got rid of the regular Takachev, replaced it with a giant full. It's minimal adjustment to her bars routine, but it's also more efficient. I think it's working so far. So only a few people have really had to adjust so far.
Who does this help?
Hana Richna, because now people will do her skill more. People who have
30 years.
Other Takachevs named after themselves who will now get name dropped more because you have to do a little bit more variety. Maybe that's what helps.
Let's discuss the dreaded side jumps on beam. Something everybody did, and then they changed the rule. Nobody got credit for it. They're like, nope, doesn't count. So might as well just have stood there and wiggled. Deducted away.
An unusual change because the value of skills hasn't changed, just the accepted technique was changed. So basically, if you're doing a side jump on beam, like a split half or a straddle half, you can't hit the split over the beam, like exactly where you would hit it if you were doing it normally, like facing in cross position along the beam. You can't hit the split in that same plane. You have to hit it in the sideward plane for it to count as a side dance element. I actually really like this change, which is unusual because I think it makes sense.
No!
It's a logical requirement.
It's inefficient. Why make a skill less efficient?
Because that's harder.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing here. You're making it's about
Make
difficulty and who's doing what harder. It's not no reason.
Why?
Because
harder isn't a good enough reason. It doesn't make it prettier.
Because this is viably logically accurate. If you are trying to, you get a 10th of bonus for doing a dance element from facing sideways instead of facing crossways on the beam. That's why people do it. If you are doing it with where you're hitting the split in cross position, you are not fulfilling the requirement for your 10th of bonus for doing a skill from side position because you're actually just faking it. You're doing it from cross position, but facing a different direction to start. The actual element, the split.
It's still harder not facing the beam when you take off and land.
Yeah.
All right. I see your argument. I throw it out the window, but I hear you.
Okay.
I throw it on the ground.
You've made me feel heard. You've made me feel seen. I just hate it.
Yes. This is dumb. Boo.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say in terms of the people it hurts, I mean, lots of people were doing 2 of them in a row. What would normally be C dance elements and getting D credit because they were doing them from the side. So anyone who was like not that comfortable with leaps but found this as a hack to get really a good difficulty score for
everyone
dance elements, now can't. So I think it hurts people who aren't that, just in general, who aren't that comfortable with dance elements on beam. Because I think a lot of people who are like, this is not my strength, we're adding those into their routines.
Yeah.
Well, people who are like, I can do a yang bow, we're like, I don't need to mess with the side nonsense. I can do a yang bow.
I think this is an attack on Shannon Miller, because remember when she said
Whoa.
she could not do anything sideways on beam, and thank God she didn't have to. I feel like it's just, for some reason, they hate Shannon Miller, and this is why they did it. I am personally offended for Shannon Miller. Candle mount downgrade. You love it. I hate it. At least people are doing some kind of flippy mount. That is true. A flippy mount, finally. But then everybody realized it's terrifying, but possible, so everyone did it.
Yeah. So the candle mount, which Jessica hates the terminology, candle mount,
No,
if
it's
you've
a
ever
back
listened to this show
dive.
before. It's a back dive to grab the beam in a handstandy position.
A candle mount makes it sound like you're like doing a handstand on the beam and you light your feet on fire. That makes no sense. I know a candle position, but non-gymnastics people don't know candle position, and that's also not candle position, because candle position, you're tucked at your head, sort of. I refuse it. Back dive mount. Go on.
I think you should write a letter to Donatella that detailing this and see what happens.
Does it say candle in the code?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
It's back dive to a candle position.
You know that I can't be bothered. I mean, it's kind of a candle because your head's under the beam, but meh. Anyway, no one's lit on fire, so it's not a candle.
Okay, fair. So that's been downgraded by a 10th, because so that you won't do it anymore and it won't be as valuable. It was a D, it's now a C. Another situation like the wolf turn restriction, where I think it's just because everyone hated it and everyone was doing it and it got really repetitive. But I think it's also a recognition, like Jessica was saying, that like this amount is super scary to think about and like horrifying to watch for a non-gymnast and probably really scary to learn. And why would you learn it? And why would you want? But once you've learned it, you've got it.
Easy.
Kind of thing. And it's not necessarily, like once you've learned it, it's not necessarily on par with the other D elements in terms of its difficulty.
Yeah.
Fair?
It is a pretty easy mount. In terms of Ds, not in terms of humans, but in terms of Ds.
Right.
It's pretty easy. And yeah, I mean, it is like when you see, this is like, so many people think the front aerial mount onto beam is easy. So they're going to try it until the one time they gas it too much or they are too close to the beam and they slam their forehead on top of the piece of metal, which is what the beam is. It's a piece of metal disguised with suede. Yeah. So if you miss, this mount, you whack your head backwards or land on your head. This is when people are learning it. There's like 2 people helping them slowly do it because it is a violent incident when you mess up on this, as are most gymnastic skills. So yeah.
And yes, the code does call it a candle mount. From rear stand, flick flack over beam to candle position ending in front support is the description of the skill. Ha! So again, this is another thing. The people who get hurt the most by this, Kayla DiCello and Grace McCallum, those routines. I hadn't really realized until going through these changes how much this code change hates Kayla DiCello. They were like,
so rude.
Everything you do on beam, no. And so I feel like it's, yeah. I mean, I think they're like, needs to be some sort of like a thread. Why does Donatella hate Kayla DiCello? And we need to talk about it.
So who does this help?
Me? Society?
That's not an answer.
You don't have to see it anymore. I don't think it actually helps anyone. Because if you weren't doing it, it's just like, well, that's not relevant to me. And if you were doing it, you're like, well, I lost a 10th. So yeah, I don't think it helps anyone. But maybe it will help those who are now like, well, maybe I should learn a different D level mount and add that to my routine to make things more interesting. Thank you, Simone, because now she's mounting with a D element on beam instead of her whole career just sitting there. It's much better.
That's true.
So let's talk about all the vault downgrades. I mean, basically, the Amanar is at extinction level at this point. It's a dinosaur never to be seen again.
That's not because... So basically what happened is all the vaults went down 4/10 in the code, but every vault went down the same amount, so it doesn't really have a huge influence. The reason we see fewer Amanars now is that the chung is worth more. So I think the criticism would be not what happened here, but that the chung, which was already worth more last quad, remains worth more.
Which made the Amanar extinct. It is the climate change event of vault, upgrading the chung. That's what it is.
So you're anti the chung being more valuable than the Amanar?
Not as Zamaripa does it, because it's beautiful. Remember when she was...
it's not an answer. Was that the answer to my question, or was that not the answer to my question?
No, that was not the answer to the question. I'm fine, because it's kind of cool. It's just like most people, it looks so wonky and terrible. It's just where there were so many pretty Amanars. There are also so many Amanars that destroyed knees forever.
That's also true.
And then there were Amanars that should have destroyed knees and somehow didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's kind of easier.
The chung?
Than a safe Amanar. So I don't think...
I can see it.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on the handspring Rudy compared to them? Because right now, handspring Rudy is the same as the Amanar, which is the, like, justice for Alicia Sacramone rule change.
Yeah.
Because that would have changed things a lot if that had been the case when, in 2008.
I'm okay with those being the same. Because it is hard to get your power, like in a chung, when you have so much business going on before you hit the vault. When you have to do all the business of hitting the board, turning around, getting your heels up, getting a block. It's just like, you get a tired degree between hitting the board and taking off again. Whereas when you're just doing a handspring Rudy, you can just bam and go. A la Alicia Sacramone.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reasoning behind this was another attempt that we've downgraded all the vaults before to try to bring vault scores closer to the other events because, ideally it shouldn't be more advantageous in your all-around score to be great at vault versus equally great at beam. But, the problem is, I think, in the execution and their evaluation, and they're trying to adapt to that, but it's still like you're doing less gymnastics on vault and you're getting 9.0 E scores where it's not possible to get anywhere close to a 9.0 E score in the other events.
You know who this helps? North Korea. Because North Korea is going to show up with all their amazing front vaults and just be like, yeah, a chung? Oh, yeah, we can do that perfectly. Thank you. Thank you for this upgrade.
When is North Korea going to compete again?
I don't know, but when they do, they always win because they're like, oh, handspring triple full? Got it.
Or they get banned from the competition because they were bad at age cheating.
Well, that happens sometimes too. But that's not the gymnast's fault.
Not the gymnast's fault. That's
the great
incompetence of whoever submitted the birth certificates and didn't submit the same face birth certificate as you did last time.
Some people just like to give us no strings attached money. They don't want to bother with joining Club Gym Nerd, and so they just donate. You can find our donate button for a no strings attached donation at the bottom of the club page at gymcastic.com/club.
Gymternet news! Jordan Childs is a finalist for the AAU Sullivan Awards. If you haven't voted yet, vote. World vault medalist and all-around fantastic gymnast Alexa Moreno of Mexico was the special international guest training at World Champion Center with Jordan and Simone and et al. Vanessa Ferrari, officially of Italy. Amazing.
Of Italy.
Of Italy, in case you didn't get that from the Vanessa Ferrari part, announced her intention to go for her 5th Olympic Games. So Paris will be her 5th Olympics. And oh my God, if she makes a floor final again, expect her to win. I'm telling you, she can't be stopped. She has all new Achilles now. She's ready to go, replaced. She's good. In dumpster fire news, prepare, fast forward if you don't want to hear this. A former gymnastics coach was ordered to stand trial for allegedly SAing 3 girls in 2 different Grand Rapids homes decades ago. So Shannon James Goy, known as Jake, worked at Ariel's and Boorman Gymnastics. They're now operating under new ownership, but investigators say Goy worked in gymnastics, martial arts, and dance studios throughout Western Michigan from the 90s to the 2010s, and that's via mlive.com. In better news, USA Gymnastics has a new sponsor, and it is Nike. And part of this deal means that part of this has to go to upholding their agreements for the survivors and all of the settlements. So hopefully that will help on that end. Thomas Gonzalez came out in his biography, which is really awesome. Thomas Gonzalez, who is, if you love Cuban and Soviet gymnastics, and all the decades they were beautiful, you will love Thomas Gonzalez. And he was also the federation president in Chile. And he came out in his biography. So if anybody has a translation, please send to us because we would like to read this. He also talked about abuse from his coach as well. Sammy Durante has been added to the coaching staff at North Carolina. So
family
hired by her mom. Suni was honored with a sculpture at a St. Paul park. And it actually
took so long.
I know. I'm like, maybe it takes years to
sculpting
sculpt.
take a while?
I don't know. It must. It's really beautiful. Like, they did a good job. It's like, sometimes they make a sculpture and you're like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, who's that supposed to be? Is it like a hybrid between like an animal and a human? It's disturbing to look at. It's really beautiful. They did such a nice job. And it took place on Sunisa Lee Day in Minnesota, which honors not just her achievements, but also her character, which I appreciated. We talked about this before, but McCool is finally, officially allowed to be paid for the job she's doing at LSU, because now you can have 4 coaches and no volunteers. So now she went from volunteer, quote unquote, to actually getting paid, as it should be. Skye Blakely announced that she is deferring NCAA, so she's not going to go to, it was Florida, right? That she...
yes, which is still, it's just deferring.
She's just deferring. She didn't say, screw college education, I'm going to do gymnastics for life. But she is deferring to pursue her run at the Olympics. And that's what we talk about all the time, how she wants it. She's like, I'm going to do this. You can see it in her eyes. In case you missed it, we talked about this on Behind the Scenes, but at the men's competition at Classic, we had some very cool skills. So Ian Gunther debuted his counter Kim on high bar, and it's so cool looking. He does a really good job. It's such a rare skill to do. Basically, you giant forward and then do a front flip and straddled and grab the bar again. And this is already named in the men's code, but if he does it piked, which is his goal, then he could have it named after him. The other thing that happened is Paul Judah did a Yurchenko double pike, and it is very good. So Simone's vault, but excellently executed. I think it is, men's vault is terrifying in general, and sometimes can go very awry. But when there is something beautiful done, it's so spectacular to watch. And I would say his form is really good. His legs are together on pre-flight, which is really rare. And I wasn't terrified. Like, I would say second to Simone. Simone first. He's second to Simone. Yes, that's the correct order. Other things that happened. This happened a while ago, but we haven't talked about it on the show yet. Simone things. That we need a whole section just called Simone things in the news. Simone, speaking of which, we should have trademarked Simone things back in the day when we first came up with it. But Simone was at a wedding, and, as Simone does, Simone was in a dance battle with an actress, and she did a backflip in a dress. I can't tell if she was wearing heels or not, but she just busted out, on the hard ground, because she's Simone. I bet she was wearing heels and it wouldn't even bother. I bet she could do that because she's that amazing. Is there anything you think Simone couldn't do in heels?
I don't know. She's a gymnast, so probably like walk in a straight line.
A couple things. We have, if you're new here, we do behind the scenes, a whole extra podcast where we answer your questions every Friday at noon Pacific. And then we do extra ones coming up at championships. We'll be doing one every day of women's, plus a live show. All right, that is going to do it for us this week. Remember to get your live show tickets. Time is running out, and there's only one VIP ticket left. Also, remember that the Stitcher app is shutting down on August 29th, so if you haven't already switched from listening to us on Stitcher to anywhere you listen to podcasts, do that now so you won't miss anything. And remember to sign up for Club Gym Nerd because we have all of our extra behind the scenes podcasts coming out during championships, which starts next week. We'll have our
Soon.
preview show
It's
and
happening.
then, podium training and every day of women's, we will have an extra podcast for you. So sign up. So until Friday at noon Pacific for behind the scenes, which is our favorite, because it's a little dirtier. It's a little more behind the scenes. It's basically on my side. It's a more adult grown up afternoon, end of the week celebration party podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to get live show tickets and take up a gay, split on rights, and we'll see you on Friday. Thanks for listening.
This show is created, executive produced, edited, audio engineered, and published by me, Jessica O'Byrne.
Managing editor in charge of show notes, podcast content, and wrangling over enthusiasm is Spencer Barnes.
Our news editor is Uncle Tim of gymnastics-history.com.
And customer service, IT, Gymternet news, and additional production services are provided by Steve Cooper, aka Fact Check.